But we're here to announce this morning about a very momentous event or occasion that's going to take place here today, which is the divestment of 20% of shares in Energy Fiji Limited. Energy Fiji Limited, as you know, at this point in time, is a state-owned enterprise that is 5% owned by ordinary Fijians, or 5% of shares has been allocated to all ordinary Fijians, ex gratia. The balance of the shares are held by the Fijian government. We had been out in the market, as you know, from 2015 and indeed 16 to look at divesting 44% of the shares. We had received expressions of interest since 2015, 2016, in fact from a lot of international bidders from all over the world. A lot of them, of course, wanted different conditions attached. Some of them wanted, we had six key bidders, I should say. A lot of them wanted majority control. Some of them wanted exorbitant increase in tariff prices. Some of them wanted management rights, a guaranteed return on equity, exclusivity, etc. We, of course, then also carried out some major reforms in the form of the review of the Electricity Act. We introduced the new Electricity Act of 2017. We, of course, deregulated the market with FCCC being the independent regulator. We, of course, had the corporatization of what was called FEA, Fiji Electricity Authority, into Energy Fiji Limited. We had new licenses being drafted, and of course we had then subsequently the giving out of shares, as I mentioned, the ex gratia shares, 5% through the appointment of the Central Share Registry, where today we already have about 40,000 domestic account holders who have become shareholders of EFL, and I'm sure that they'll rush after this announcement, those of you who are actually entitled to it but have actually not come and collected your shares. Following the reforms we undertook and following the EOIs we received in 2015, 2016, we again then engaged in a number of experts to go out into the market. We engaged the ANZ investment arm based in Sydney, who obviously have a smorgasbord of investors that would be interested in such investments. We used PricewaterhouseCoopers New Zealand as a financial advisor on the due diligence aspect of it. We engaged Squire Patton Boggs, the legal advisors. Of course, Ernst & Young had done some work for us prior to that. Following the engagement of ANZ, we then received a number of expressions of interest. Some of these entities actually put in bids. We received a bid from their consortium of what we call ADRA and Plus Renewables, Malaysian/Chinese-based company, based in Malaysia. We then have, of course, a bid from FNPF. We then also had a bid from a consortium called Synthesis Global, Meralco, and Export Finance Australia, commonly known as Synthesis. Then we also had what we call a non-binding bid that were put in by, or not even a bid, but actually just simply expression of interest from Fijian Holdings and the Gupta Family Group. Fijian Holdings and Gupta Family Group actually did not put in a bid. Now, following this expressions of interest and indeed the bids that were put in, there's been some very, very tough negotiations that have been carried out in the past few months, and I can assure you there are a lot of tense moments in these negotiations, and we've come out, we are happy to say, a successful outcome for the sale of 20% of the 44% of shares that was out for sale or divestment by government. And Fiji National Provident Fund is the successful purchase of the 20% of the shares. So in other words, out of the 500 million shares that EFL has issued, FNPF, following the signing of this sale and purchase agreement, will own 100 million shares in the 500 million shares that have been issued by EFL. Of course, 25 million of those shares are held by Fijian domestic account holders. A number of key terms and conditions that I'd like to highlight that has been part of the negotiated terms. FNPF now, of course, will sit on the board of EFL. They'll have at least one board member as long as they own 15% of the shares in EFL. EFL will continue with its non-commercial obligations, but capped to the value of $22 million, which is the figure that EFL spent in non-commercial obligation space in 2018. There are various drag-along rights and tied in with put option rights for the 2 years. Government is, of course, guaranteed the due diligence and the representation that have been made. And there is also a dividend policy that will pay out in the range of 30 to 50%, subject, of course, to the normal procedural board meetings and the board decisions in the Companies Act. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's what we're here for, and to announce that we believe that this is a phenomenal step that's been taken into the energy sector in Fiji, and this will, of course, mean that we can open up the capital markets in Fiji and allow more investors to get into that space and indeed bring in private sector investment. So, ladies and gentlemen, with those few introductory remarks, I will now like to carry on with the signing ceremony, and I'll be just filling in for the Honourable Prime Minister. And following the signing ceremony, I'll read out the speech from the Honourable Prime Minister, then invite the chairs of the two organizations to say a few short words. Thank you.